What's going on, everyone? TJ Leach here. Today's video, I am swapping out a stock catalyst tank for this Pro tank from Speed Shop Inc. Some goodies that come with the tank: the new nozzle and an O-ring, little parts, bits and pieces here, bolts to mount the tank, and then you have an extended tube here that helps get the bladders to reach further into the tank compared to the stock one. Just a quick snapshot of the tools that I'm using for this install. These snippies are primarily for cutting wire ties. I got a 10 mil, T25, an 8 mil, a T40, a T30, and I'm not sure exactly what size this is. I think it might be a T20. But these two I used primarily just for removing bolts off of the plastics, as well as removing bolts for the tank that attached to the upper part of the chassis. I also use a DeWalt Ugga Gugga, which helps with quickly installing all of the bolts for where the fuel pump attaches, as well as the fuel nozzle attaches on the new tank. All right, I'm just gonna start disassembling the rear end here. Pretty simple, just removing the seat and then removing this back piece here. So you won't actually need this anymore. Just keep it off to the side wherever you're gonna store the stock tank if you're ever to put the stock tank back on. I just put the bolts back into the tank just so I don't ever lose them. Next, taking off the plastics. I gotta do this in order to just be able to pull the tank out. And this will also give me access to the fuel module and everything up here so I can disconnect everything. If you're doing this yourself, please be careful pulling any of the electrical stuff out of the plastic here. Twisting things and whatnot can cause the wiring to fray or even pull out of the systems. All right, I've got this plastic off and out of the way. I'm gonna try and keep everything connected. Last time I disconnected and completely got this panel out of the way. You know, I left the pull cord on, but I pulled it out and got it completely out of the way. You can see here's the fuel module, and there's some wires and sensors connected, as well as this kind of breather hose. What I'm gonna do is just get everything disconnected here. I'm gonna undo bolts where the tank's connected. All right, I've disconnected both the fuel gauge sensor and the fuel line. I'm just using a cloth here to just make sure nothing gets into the fuel line. I'm gonna leave this breather hose that's elaborately woven in here alone. I'm just gonna disconnect it from the tank. It's kind of like a cork or like a rubber stopper here, so I'll just wiggle it out. I just used a little flathead screwdriver underneath the rubber stopper in my hand and kind of just twisted it and popped it out. I have the two tanks here side by side. The stock one fully disconnected, the Speed Shop Inc. one. It's easy in this shot to see where that 2.5 gallon extra comes from. Next steps is to remove these bolts here. I dropped the skid on the 2024 install, so I'm gonna see if I can do this without dropping the skid. It might be a little bit tricky, but I'll take my time and figure that out. Next, I'm moving the fuel pump over to the Speed Shop Inc. tank. I'm gonna be working around open fumes from this fuel, so I'm gonna crack open the door even though it's cold outside. And I'm also gonna put gloves on, because last time I did this, I didn't wear gloves and my hands stank with gasoline. So I recommend making sure, please have proper ventilation if you are gonna do this. And then I also recommend using gloves as well. Here's the fuel system, the fuel pump, the 3 bladders, and then the 3 hoses. This hose right here is the one I am replacing. There's still fuel in this system, so I just got to get that out I had this tub sitting around, just that was clean, brand new, that I'm just gonna work out of, just so I don't get fuel kind of everywhere, keep everything nice and contained. But I'm going to start getting these hoses apart so I can replace that, and then also empty out the fuel that's in there. Okay, careful, make sure you don't spray fuel everywhere. Holy. Bladders are really sensitive, so just make sure that they don't get punctured. Ooh, this one's spicy to get off. All right, I took the easy way and just sliced it because I couldn't yank it off. If I were to install the stock tank back on, I can just cut the hose down and reinstall it again so that it fits back in that shorter tank. The kit comes with these little clamps here that I'm going to slide on to our extended hose. I'm going to heat the tip of this up with a hairdryer just to make it easy to slide on. Okay, make sure that there's extra fuel in there. All right, make sure the bladders are facing the right direction. Got my clips on. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. All right, so those are flat. 1, 2. The rubber ring from the stock tank. Ooh, excuse that. Looks good. Reusing the bolts. Hand tighten it from now on. And I'm not reefing down on these. Tighten it up nice and snug. And I'm going in a crosshatch tightening pattern. There. And there. Just like that. Then start throwing some bolts in. Get them all lined up. There we go. Just enough so that you see it deform just a little bit. It's nice and tight. Stock gas cap, put that on so nothing gets in there. Alrighty, fuel system is in. The new cap filler here is in. Next is installing it onto the snowmobile. Fit the wiring that leads to an electric battery, as well as the tail light has to just fit in this groove that's in the bottom, right there. I don't have electric start, so I use actually the mounting hardware to zip tie the wiring to so it doesn't fall back down underneath. I'm actually going to install the rubber stopper first, because that's a pain to get in. A little twist and a little wiggle. There we go. Oh, Let's feed the wire up. Just give it a little wiggle to get it nice and flat. I take a washer and bolt from the electric start mounting kit, and I'm just gonna throw that right on here. All right, that ain't going anywhere. After chatting with the guys over at Speed Shop Inc., to align with these holes that are just in the tunnel, I'm gonna use a strap wrench. Pull it that direction so that the bolt holes line up under here. Let's see how this works. Let's go. All right, this is how you strap wrench it for the bolt holes to line up. Yay.
I ended up dropping the skid because it was getting an absolute pain in the butt for me. But it's totally possible to install this without removing the skid. I just don't have the patience for it. It's very easy for me to drop the skid, put the bolts in, and then put the skid back in. So there is an undercarriage view of where those bolts go. One little thing you might have to modify is if these don't line up in this part of the chassis here, then I would just recommend taking a drill bit and just kind of like boring it out a little just to make room for that bolt if it's not going straight in. Lastly, this little washer here, you'll end up pulling the pin that holds the seat down on the tank off the stock one and using this to install it here. For a fully finished example, here is my ice racing sled, my 2024 Catalyst. The seat fits on perfectly fine. There's no issues with it. The only thing I've noticed is that you can see a little bit of the plastic tab right here. It's definitely worth having. This saved me in my race this past weekend. This is actually how much fuel I had left after my 100-mile race and doing a 4-gallon fuel stop. This thing was completely full, so definitely worth having for racing specifically. But if you're gonna be out in the backcountry or going on really long trail rides, this thing is definitely a must-have.
That's basically it for installing this thing. I'm going to start putting stuff back together and bolting it in, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Really, the main things I wanted you to see in this video were installing the fuel pump, the fuel intake nozzle up here, and then where you can put the wiring for the tail light and the electric start if you don't have an electric start battery. And then seeing the process of using a strap wrench to get the bolt holes aligned and then putting the bolts in. These are not nylock in here, so you don't need to put any blue Loctite. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. The guys over at Speed Shop Inc. are really good as well. You can reach them, give them a call, or shoot them an email with any questions. I'm also on social media on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook page is TJ Leach, and my Instagram is at TJLeach214. Again, appreciate you watching, and catch you in the next video.